we intend and we will host similar events throughout this year. Now, the concept behind what we're doing is to go around the world and using the network and the international network that PARA has to find and identify similar issues pertaining to the industry. And this is exactly what we want to try and do today, to put together the various different aspects of issues and opportunities for Sydney and the east coast of Australia and rise them to the surface and see if we can find some outcomes at the end of the day. And I'd like to introduce you to Donna Meredith. Thank you.
My job today is to keep things moving and also to encourage you all to question our very talented group of speakers who have lots to say and strong opinions, as do most of the people in this room. Speaking of strong opinions, it's my pleasure, of course, to introduce the CEO of PARTA, Martin Craigs.
Here to give you a brief introduction and obviously to introduce myself. The whole idea of these hub city forums started in my first 6 weeks. And I said, instead of us expecting the industry all to come to us, why don't we go to the market, 5 to 6 hub cities, and why don't we go and listen to what those markets know?
That's what Tourism 2020 is all about. That's why it's overseen by tourism ministers who meet twice a year to review the progress that exists there. We often hear about the manufacturing sector. I think there's only about 17 countries that are involved in the manufacture and design of a car. There are 200 countries in the world competing for the global traveller.
I've got a question.
Okay.
We've got an election in 8 months. So for the next 8 months, a lot of us are going to be wondering, what does this mean? What does it mean in terms of tourism policy, or how does it factor into these great initiatives that you've got going forward?
Look, that's a good question, but I think it's worthwhile noting is that since Tourism 2020 and its predecessors were launched, there's been a number of changes of government at the state and territory level. From our point of view, it's very much business as usual.
Lovely. And now from the national view, I guess, to the state view, and we're calling upon John King, AOM, who of course is the chairman of ATEC and a PARTA board member.
Thank you, Donna. I'm going to talk about making New South Wales competitive again. And while it picks up one of the three, I guess, aspects of the topic, the other being cost and congestion, nevertheless, what I'll be talking about really cuts across them as well. From where I sit as a member of that Visitor Economy Task Force, I know of no government report that's had that level of acceptance and is totally committed to implementing this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Peter Harbison, Executive Chairman of the Centre for Aviation.
I put on the back of this a few spots. They come from a lovely document called Background Paper. It's from the Parliamentary Library. The point being, there is not a lot of incentive for the incumbent airlines to be pushing really, really hard.
Is that developing a second airport prematurely would be a significant cost to the economy, a cost to the industry, and in fact not achieve any of the objectives that we're all setting out to achieve. So in the long term, whether that's 2035 or 2045, absolutely more infrastructure is required. But in fact, there are things that can be done today to relieve policy constraints.
Whilst you say that we're quite good at talking within the industry, actually getting some key facts out there and understood to inform that debate, I think is actually a first step, because it's too easy to have a politics gloss over this all the time without a real comprehension. I mean, for tourism operators, you understand, because you see it every day, you understand the market's changing, you see the passenger base evolving, you see that you're needing to adapt your product offering in order to respond to a changing market.
And this is why I'm so delighted that PARTA is taking the broader view of the visitor economy. You know, for example, within ATEC, we have looked to engage with the whole the services sector round table, because the services sector in this country is almost 80% of our entire economy.
Yeah, the leadership tends to rely, as you say, John, on government. To try and be a little bit more positive, but different in a way, we're forecasting 1 million Chinese visitors by 2020. One of the things that's not being talked about a whole lot is the cultural impact it's going to have on Australia. 1 million visitors means tens of thousands of residents, means just a total business cycle.
What we're really going to look here is anybody making money out of hotels? Should I buy one? Or then even the more perplexing question of are we at a point where we could be building some? Talk about congestion, are we full? Yes, we are very full, as are some principal cities in Asia, as we're already here. And coming to build them, fringe locations we can do something, but if you really want downtown hotels, it's really a government initiative.
Just to start off, a little bit about Service Skills Australia. We are what's called an Industry Skills Council, and our role is to provide information to government on the needs of our industries, both in terms of their workforce and the skills development for those industries. But I guess one of the things that we find constantly is a battle, and that's very true. If you want a business that's going to succeed, then you need to know where you want the business to go, not just manage from week to week.
It's a tough spot to finish. I've got a few ideas before I begin on how we can get the congestion issue of Sydney Airport out there, Shelley and Peter Harbison. First of all, I think we need tonight to out the Kellyville client. I think we need one of those chase stories where he's running down an alley trying to duck for cover from the camera, and he's the guy making 1,000 complaints a month. So I just wanted to probably round out from where Mick Dowie started and talk a little bit about what we're doing, because there's a lot of talk about the problems, but I also think the industry is actually really growing and there is a lot of positivity about the place. I do think that, as Nick outlined, the 2020 strategy has framed up the discussion better than it's ever been framed in my 20 years in the industry. Seeing a lot more bigger, better aircraft, servicing us more efficiently, more fuel efficiently, in a quieter way, which will help us all. So the forward orders of aircraft are there. Australia's job is to get those aircraft pointed at us, because as Shelley said, they can go anywhere. So we actively work in this space with the airports and the STOs to actually put on the table opportunity to land those wide-bodied aircraft here in Australia.
So there are all those people there. What about the Australians? Why are they not investing? And I think there's a couple of interesting things that have just happened. One is I was involved with a consortium that bought Cradle Mountain Lodge. That was a group of Aussie investors, beautiful product. John's the chairman of Tourism Tassie, or X. Fabulous property. That was a group of investors who put it together, took a view that they wanted to have some interest in tourism. That property does 78% occupancy year in, year out, and has for the last 5, unlike a lot of other resort properties.
Just a theme park in Goldcoast.
So I'd put that back a bit to you and the commercial sector and inbound tour operators, to be honest, because the markets from those places are growing, you know, and the number of FIT travels are growing exponentially. And I would argue you hit it on a really good point. I think that Australia is still selling itself to the group traveller as a very meat and potatoes basic product, and I think that there's been a missed commercial opportunity from perhaps some of the inbound operators and others to not evolve the product and give them a higher value to Australia.
Altogether, and have sadly lost that personality of what a career in tourism and travel can make.
Look, I think part of that we create what we call an environmental scan every year, which is a snapshot of the industry and the trends and issues facing the industry at that particular time. So that focuses on the skills that are needed, it focuses on the career pathways that are available.
Again, for our speakers.